All right, Cody, I see the live button. I think we're good to go, right?
1 second. Yep.
Oh,
yes,
sorry.
you're good to go.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to the March 22nd, 2021 meeting of the CB6 Land Use and Waterfront Committee. My name is Adam Harkey, and I am the chair of the committee. This meeting is being called to order at 6:32 p.m. Tonight, we are joined by Assistant District Manager Cody Osterman. Members of the public, you may raise questions or comments that you have throughout the Q&A feature of Zoom. If there is time following the committee's discussion, we will field questions for the public. Okay. We need someone to take minutes this evening. Do we have any volunteers? You may raise your hand through Zoom. Okay.
Kavitha has her hand raised, Adam.
Kavitha, are you the hero or the MVP of this meeting?
Yep.
And you agree to it. All right. Excellent. Thank you very much, Kavitha. Kavitha will be taking minutes for this evening, and we thank her very much. Going forward, there's a doodle poll that you've all received from the office. If you could please fill out the doodle poll to be which Cody has put in the chat, to either be the primary minutes taker or the alternative in case someone cannot take the minutes. Okay. At the discretion of the board chair, each committee meeting must have a designated minutes taker and a designated backup. Okay, and I just said that. I apologize. Okay, so with that said, we are now going to take attendance. Cody, will you please conduct the roll call?
Okay, committee members, when I call your name, please unmute yourself and say present. Jim Collins.
Present, sorry.
Okay, great. Jim, great. Adam Hartke.
Present.
Molly Hollister.
Here.
Kavitha Matthew.
Here.
Sandy McKee. Sandy joined. Let's see what she has. Wells Magali.
Here.
Adam, you said Jean Santoro is not going to make it tonight. Larry
That's
Shire.
correct.
Has Larry joined? Larry? Ann Seligman.
She's here.
Ann, if you could unmute yourself.
Here.
Lou Sapersky.
Yo.
Sandro Sherrod.
Here.
Letty Simon.
Here.
And Adam, you saw that Kathy has also said that she cannot make it, Kathy Thompson. So that's 9
That's
members
correct.
present.
And Larry, I see Larry right now.
All right, Larry, I've got him down, and you've now got 10 members. You're good to go.
Excellent. Thank you all for joining this evening. So, okay. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and appears on the screen before you. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda as stated. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the agenda, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Okay, seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. The minutes from this February 22nd meeting were distributed ahead of time by the board office. If there is no objection, we will adopt the minutes as drafted. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the minutes, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Okay, seeing no objection, the minutes from the February 22nd meeting are adopted. They will soon be available on the CB6 website. Okay, we will be going for some ground rules. I believe this is now almost 1 year or 11 months since we've been doing this, so the rules are more or less the same as they were before. No one may speak until granted the floor. Committee members, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. If you click the participants icon, the participants panel should appear, and you should find the raise hand function there. If you still have technical difficulties, Cody will be able to assist you. Please do not use the chat function. When a committee member is given the floor to speak, I will identify you and you can unmute yourself so that you can speak. You're required by executive order to create a verbatim transcript of the meeting, so please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. Okay, with that said, let's jump into our agenda this evening. All right, once again, we have the team from the ESCR and DDC to present to us. And with that said, Desiree, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Let me share my screen. Give me 1 second, please. Okay. All right. I think everybody could see that, it looks like. All right, and we'll start. I was just saying to Adam before we started how nice it is to be able to be here when the sun is still out. All the other meetings that we've had, it's been so dark and gloomy. So it's great to see everybody on. We have a presentation for you tonight to give some construction updates. All right, let's see. Once again, my name is Desiree Gazzo from HNCB Lero. I'm here representing the ESCR project with our colleagues here at DDC. We have some colleagues at DOT also on board tonight. So we'll run through a couple of highlights, pre-construction and construction phase updates, some communication updates, and then just 1 or 2 what we've heard items. So we've made a couple of changes. We've been updating the website, which we'll get into a little bit later. But this is kind of a new graphic that we have with the project areas. The information is the same, it's just an updated graphic and just kind of shows you, of course, where we are over here with PA2. Just an overview of the contracts. For project area 1, we went over, the last time that the bid had opened. So they are moving through that procurement process right now. For project area 2, everyone is well aware we're into construction, at this point. And then parallel conveyance is the next contract to release for bid in the upcoming weeks. So just a reminder of where our flood wall construction will be kind of tying into the VA hospital wall in Asser Levy Playground, coming through under the FDR here, and then continuing past Solar One here, and then a little image here, and then just some of the construction tasks that are related with that. And this is kind of to give an overview of how we'll be progressing through this project. So we've been, working on the utility relocations, and then the next step here will be pile driving and pile installations before we work on the concrete foundation of the wall, and then the wall itself, and then we'll finish up with the site elements. So we just wanted to pop that graphic up there. For the anticipated activities, the night work on the FDR service road will continue. We're working with Con Ed, as you could see on the bulletins that that are received every week on those oil-static lines. The traffic detour will continue at 23rd Street under the FDR. We had put out an updated bulletin 2 weeks ago, and this week we'll start that shift, which I have a slide for that we'll put up in just a minute. We're continuing the sewer, manhole, and catch basin work, some erosion control work, and then the upcoming is the preparation for the wall footing adjacent to that Solar One area. So the Solar One area will be the first area that will be doing the pile driving, adjacent to Solar One, and then again just continued utility relocation. So we've also included this slide. This is the map that we've been using in the bulletin. Again, I hope everyone is signed up for the weekly bulletin. We added a map to make some of the operations in the bulletin a little bit more easy to understand of where these operations are occurring, because we realize, it is a tight spot and there's a lot of similar locations. So we hope that does help. And then we've kind of, tried to give a little bit more of a detailed look ahead with some of these areas here, and just noting where there are traffic and pedestrian detours, noting where the night work is, which again is only on the FDR Drive West Service Road. excuse me, at this point. And then again, noting when potentially the MPT flips are. So this week we have the MPT flip to the stage 2 MPT, and then MPT is basically maintenance and protection of traffic. So that's when, you know, the construction changes and the routing will be different. And here I have the traffic pattern shift for this week. And it's a minor change in traffic pattern, but it is different, slightly different than the traffic pattern that we have been using. So everyone should, you know, beware if you're driving, you know, or a pedestrian in the area, to mind the signs, listen to the traffic and control flaggers, bicycles, pedestrians. You know, it's a very busy intersection. It was a busy intersection to begin with, and now with the construction, it's become, you know, even more busy. So we do please ask that everyone does heed the signage that's there, and pay attention to the traffic control flaggers. So we've also put out the community advisory about the start of pile driving. So again, that's in the Solar One area here. And that's starting next week, the week of March 29th. It is daytime pile driving. So that's between the hours of 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Again, the noise monitoring is in place. The contractors essentially will use the noise monitoring equipment to make sure that the work does not exceed the limits, which we've gone over in previous presentations. Should the noise go above the set noise levels, then the contractor will need to stop work, evaluate the situation, either, you know, change how the pile driving work is being done, or implement noise mitigation procedures. So we did give the 2-week notice for that. And again, if you have any questions, please reach out either here to myself, to Nadine, our CCL, or through the inquiry tool. So these are the community advisories that were issued. The website updates, we finally were able to put the maps that we have been creating for these presentations, for the advisories. They are all up on the website under the project updates section. So you can scroll through the current maps and detours, which we hope makes it a little bit easier than having to kind of click on each of the bulletins or the advisories. You can see here. And then there are resources for construction updates. So we are, you know, continuing to try to make the website a bit user-friendly. But we please welcome any comments that you have always. Another thing we wanted to share is the construction fencing program. And I think those who were potentially at the last CAG meeting, we did bring it up, but we are implementing a decorative construction fencing in the for the project area, for both project area 1 and 2. It will occur in 2 phases for the PA2 area. Phase 1 will be primarily focused on project information, education of the project, what is resiliency, what is happening here. So that is, we're looking to get that up hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And then phase 2 will be the rollout of a community engagement program, a call for art program, where we will engage nonprofit organizations within the community boards, and the community itself, for a call for art to be displayed on the construction fencing. So that is still under development, and we're looking to roll that out shortly. But we did want to let you know that this was coming. We think it'll be a great way to interact with the community, both, you know, artists, local artists, as well as school groups. So we are very excited about that. In section 3, MWBE, so we have been working with our sub-consultant, Trang Bui, who we've introduced you to on previous calls, as well as the DDC Office of Diversity and Industry Relations. So March 24th, which is Wednesday, DDC will be featured at a small business services event. It's a Meet the Agency event. And we're very excited that Wayne Lambert will be presenting. There will be kind of 1 or 2 slides on the ESCR project, which he will briefly mention. But this is geared towards small businesses and how small businesses can work with DDC. Again, it's not specifically on the ESCR project, but it would be helpful for any small businesses to attend had you not worked with DDC in the past. Then the next thing we're hoping to roll out, or we will be rolling out in April, is our first kind of informational session for Section 3 and MWBE. That will be specific to the ESCR project. So we're looking to roll that out at the end of April, and then we look to have a similar event quarterly as we kind of look towards other events and partnerships, which we would like to hold kind of on a monthly basis. And then HNTB does a partner webinar series. We have put them up in prior presentations. They recently interviewed the MTA kind of counterpart to Wayne and are working on a Port Authority, and then they will be working on hosting DDC for a kind of meet DDC and introduced to the partners event. And the partners webinar series again is focusing on the MWBE community, Section 3, etc. So we're very excited that we are planning some great programs. We are looking to partner, of course, with other groups as well. And we're hoping that on the next presentation, Trang will be able to give a little bit more information about some of the other things that we're working on. Okay, and then this is our last slide for tonight. Under the what we've heard, we understand that I think the past 1 or 2 presentations, there has been a request for a longer projected project schedule and timeline. So we are working on that. We've been being asked from several different groups for something that's a little bit more long-term than the 2 or 4 weeks that we have been giving. So that is something that, again, we're working on, but we just want to make sure that is correct and in line with what the contractor is planning, etc. So that is in the works, and we're hoping to have that for the next meeting. And then the other item that we know people have been asking about is the Avenue C detour under the FDR Drive between 18th to 20th Street and potentially to 23rd Street. So that is still undergoing coordination with DOT and DDC. We have had additional meetings, and we are really hoping to have some information for the CB6 Transportation Committee meeting. So please stay tuned on that. We could certainly take questions. However, there isn't anything more that we could say on that tonight. And we're hoping that for the CAG meeting or the CB6 Transportation meeting, we will have more information. So that's our presentation for this evening. We thank everyone for bearing with the construction impacts that have been happening in the area. And of course, we look to make things better. So we do look for any suggestions or thoughts that, you, the community, has.
Excellent. Thank you, Desiree. I had a question. I apologize if you answered this during your presentation, but on slide 4, there was about the phase 1 construction, about how bids opened in February. Do you know when those bids are slated to close, and when do you expect the firms will be selected?
Sure. Jeff, I think you're on. Do you want to speak to that?
Sure. So the bid process is closed. We're in the process of vetting the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. So we should hopefully have some news soon about that process. It's ongoing procurement, so there's not a ton we can share, but we've received the bids that folks have submitted bids for the PA1 area.
Okay.
There's no further bid procurement for that.
Okay. So ongoing. Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Larry, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Is there any money available for the decoration of the fences, pay the artists?
For the artists?
For the artists, any
Yes,
money
there will
available?
be stipends for the artists that are selected for the fencing.
And what's the process for application? Has that been worked out?
We're working through an application process. It would be essentially a form, an online form or a paper form. And there'll be a series of information that needs to be filled out. And then you would be able to submit your art either electronically, and we're working with some community locations. We've been contacting police departments, fire departments, libraries, etc., for drop-off locations that we could potentially have.
And
So we're
who
working through everything. Sorry.
would be the jury selecting the art?
Sure. So we've reached out to several nonprofit organizations, and we're still confirming that they are on board for that selection committee, but they are essentially separate entities from the project. They're not, they're not agencies that are associated with the project. We wanted to keep the jury separate than project individuals. The DOT and DDC and Parks will have kind of an advisory role, but we wanted to keep the advisory group or the selection committee separate.
And if it's okay with you, Adam, I'd like to ask about around 18th Street and Avenue C, about the homeless encampment and what resources will be brought to bear there.
Sure. And so the homeless encampment has gone through several different kind of review and discussions through the agencies. Since it is DOT property, it is now in DOT laws court, and they are pushing with the city to get that area kind of resolved. So we have had several conversations between DOT and DDC and the city and DOT, and ultimately it has been determined that it is DOT's property. So DOT law group is now pushing forward with that. And I don't know if anyone from DOT is on and wants to speak more to that, please jump in. But that's essentially where we are.
What is the outcome that they're going to go to court, or what do they have to do?
Yeah, I can jump in, Desiree. My understanding is if folks don't leave voluntarily, there's a legal process they have to go through. So that is where it is right now.
And to add, DSS is also involved, and they've done outreach to the individuals, and they've offered housing and social services to them. So you have a lot of city agencies' eyes and ears on this, and they're trying to help these individuals transition. And because obviously we need to get this done, because they're right underneath, their things are right underneath one of our, what's it called, Desiree?
The sewer manholes.
Yeah, thank you. A sewer man, yeah, and we need to get to that. So everyone's trying to, safely relocate them and provide them the services that they need.
They seem to like living there.
Yeah. But for their safety, eventually they need to be relocated.
Thank you.
Thank you for your good question. Good question. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Larry. If there's no one from the committee, I'm going to call on Adina from Solar One. Solar One sent us an email saying that they've been having conversations back and forth. So they wanted to sort of let sort of their issues be known and sort of to ask EDC some follow-up questions if need be. Cody, can you unmute Dina?
I'm unmuted, Adam. Thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So, I mean, as everyone can see from these pictures, the Solar One building is right in the middle of the construction zone. And if you've been to the park recently, you know that the north end of the park is closed, so we don't have direct access from the building into the park, which is requiring workers, the staff to walk an extra quarter of a mile out of their way in order to get into the park and to the sheds where the tools and things are. But we're really concerned, having heard several different things about how safe it is and how possible it is for us to work out of that building. It is now spring. We have a lot of work that needs to be done within the park itself. The staff, the quality of life issues are going to become much more intense over the next couple of weeks and months. We will not have a flush toilet. We will not have hot water for the staff to wash their hands. They will not have a place to change their clothes. And we feel like we were led to believe that the construction would not be this disruptive on us. And now that it's here, we're being told that it is. I know that EDC and DDC have been in conversations about trying to get us an alternate place to work, but those conversations have not actually led to anything concrete. And now this pile driving is starting on Monday, and we're just really concerned about the safety issues that this is going to cause within the park itself, when it's really impossible for park goers to let us know things that are happening. We cannot see into the park, and we will not have a base of operations for our staff to work out of that's not in the way of the construction. Already this week, we had to move a shed, which is now damaged and less secure because it was on top of a manhole. We got 24 hours notice that this had to be done. And the communications are not good. We get different stories from the contractor on the ground than we do from the construction manager. Today, we had a conversation with EDC based on their conversation with DDC. We were told that this pile driving work could take up to 8 weeks. So the period keeps getting longer. We are not convinced that we're going to be able to do our work properly. We need some assistance and support. And instead we kind of feel like we're being treated like we're just in the way, but the park has to stay open and we have to be able to work in it. And that means we need some facilities and amenities, and the staff needs to be safe, and so do the people who are using the park.
Thanks, Tina. Appreciate that. I know there have been several meetings. I personally have not been involved in all of them. Ophelia, did you have something to add to your, yeah.
Yes. So yes, hi Dina. So we've been speaking with EDC and trying to coordinate on this. We're still in conversations. We understand that you're finding it difficult and challenging. However, DDC Construction, they assure that staff still has a safe ability to access the site for you to get the staff to get in and out of Solar One. In terms of yeah.
I appreciate you saying that, but it's hard to see how that's true if there's going to be pile driving going on from 7 in the morning until 3:30 in the afternoon. How is that possible?
Yeah, so they're gonna continue. Unfortunately, Ahmed isn't here to be able to speak to those logistics, but that was kept in mind, the safety of the Solar One, and to always keep a safe area where employees can go in and out. So we're still keeping that in mind. I don't have the logistics. And we understand that there's been miscommunication because folks are speaking to the site manager versus, reaching out to Jeff or myself or Ahmed directly, which, stops miscommunication. But we continue to work with EDC. I know Solar One is their tenant and they're taking the lead on this. And in our discussions right now, we don't have anything to report, but we still have a follow-up meeting with EDC.
Okay, but I have reached out to Ahmed directly, and I have not gotten any kind of satisfactory answers. And, again, you say that we'll have access, but you have not given us a plan for how that's going to be. You haven't told us what hours we're going to be able to access the building. I feel like, it's now a week away. We've been asking for this since December.
Okay.
So you can understand there's a little bit of frustration at this point.
Okay.
Yes, we can follow up with Ahmed to see what was discussed, because I also was not part of all the conversations with you, Dina, but we can take this offline.
Okay, great. Thank you. And so just to confirm, there are ongoing meetings between the SCR team and Solar One.
Yes, this is one of our priorities. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, Anne, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed to hear about the position that Solar One is in, because it's really such a gem there. And I'm just wondering if there's anything that the board or the board office can do that can ensure that they are getting accurate and timely information, as well as the substance underneath it. It's not just the information, but this is like really major inconvenience. So to say the least. So I'm just wondering if there's a way that we can help more substantially.
The community board can help. And just to be clear, your question, if the community board can help in some way, is that the?
Yeah, I mean, even if it's just to sort of, being another point of accountability. So that, I don't know what it is. And I mean, the question really is for, Adam or, or for, for anybody from the board or from Solar One, what else can be done to reduce some of this frustration?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what we can do as a board, I mean, we can work as facilitators, but it's my understanding that in addition to the team that's on the call here, Councilmember Power's office has been very active in sort of facilitating the various groups. And, in terms of us as a committee or a board, we can pass a resolution for things that we would like to see. But, sort of outside of that, it's pretty much nothing that we can do. So in new business, if we'd like to entertain the idea of some sort of resolution, I'd be happy to do that.
I think from Solar One's point of view, any help and support that we can get would be appreciated.
Okay. All right. So we'll take it up underneath new business.
Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, thank you. And so with that said, so there are a host of different questions here that have been answered in some way, shape, or form. So I'm going to go through these sort of quickly. Michael Cohen asked about what the swing gates will look like and how tall they'll be. I believe there's renderings for those online. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. All right, great. And the 3D model, will that be on display at, I guess, when you guys get an actual physical storefront, will that be there?
Yeah, it's right now. It's in the designer studio. We can try and see if we can find some pictures.
Okay.
I don't think we're bringing it to the neighborhood in the near future just because of the current pandemic. But we can try and find some pictures and post them online if that's helpful for folks.
Yeah, that'd be cool. All right, thanks. And so the Avenue, you'll be discussing Avenue C in the Transportation Committee in 2 weeks on April 5th. So that's not this Monday, but next Monday. And yes, and so that'll be both in terms of the actual traffic diversions and for the actual pedestrian and cyclist diversions as well.
I think there was a question on the northbound traffic and when the 2 lanes would reopen. I think unfortunately that's going to be in place for a while, probably till the end of the year.
Right.
Unrelated to the bike lane, but yeah, the two lanes to one going north toward the FDR will be in place for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that's, as Desiree mentioned, they're shifting back and forth between the southbound side of 23rd and the northbound side of 23rd to do, excuse me, the utility interference removal and then additional infrastructure work that we have to do as part of the project.
Okay, great. And so that with that said, so if you want to hear more information about the Avenue C detours in any way, shape, or form, again, I encourage those who are on the meeting or in the Zoom tonight to tune in, not this Monday, but next Monday, April 5th, for the Transportation Committee meeting. And I'm hoping we'll have some good updates from you and your team. Okay. Are there any other questions from the committee? If not, thank you very much, ESCR team, as always. Larry, you have one last question.
For that Transportation Committee meeting, it wasn't mentioned here, but it was promised before that there would be a start date for construction on the protected bike lane on Avenue C from 18th Street down to Houston Street. If anybody knows an answer now about when that's going to start, that'd be great. Otherwise, we expect to hear from you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I know DOT will definitely be on the call in two weeks, so I'd leave it to them. I don't want to speak on their behalf.
Right.
Yeah,
sorry.
I could jump
Please.
in just real quick.
Nick, there you go.
Nick from DOT. Good evening, everybody. So just really quick about the Avenue C protected bike lane. It is still scheduled to be implemented and installed this late spring, early summer. I don't have an exact date. Hopefully we'll be able to get you that exact date if we have that by the transportation meeting. But we are still coordinating. We're still planning to have that implemented in the near future.
Thank you, Neg.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, ESCR team. We really do appreciate it. And if there's any sort of questions that either the committee members or anyone else may have, please, the main contact is on your website. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. There's
Right.
a contact us page, and then there's the web inquiry tool. There's Nadine's email as well. There's several ways to reach us.
Excellent. Great. Thank you very much. All right.
Thank
I
you.
hope you guys
Thanks
enjoy the
everyone
nice
for
weather.
having us tonight. You too.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. All right. So we are now going to move on to the second item on our agenda. And so this is the continued discussion of the legislative proposal from City Council regarding the creation of a 10-year comprehensive plan. And so we've been discussing this sort of back and forth in this committee and within the Strategic Planning Committee. And so we've basically, in terms of sort of hearing and consuming all of the different data points and opinions and the legislation itself, my understanding is that Jim and Kavitha will be writing a resolution in the Strategic Planning Committee. When we reached out to the electeds offices, basically what we've heard is that there's been no real movement in this bill. It's still in the committee where they are consuming the copious amounts of public testimony that they've gotten, both in terms of the mammoth Zoom meeting and all of the other sort of briefs that were submitted. And so there's definitely a lot to go through. Again, this is sort of just an incredible undertaking. And it's done something in so much that it's managed to, make everyone sort of unhappy in some way, shape, or form. So I'm not sure if that's a success or a failure. But I think what's important is that, we will, as a board, weigh in on sort of what's been presented so far within this bill. Because, truthfully, I think there's a lot to be desired. And so, with that, what's sort of good is that this bill will not move anytime soon. So that allows us to sort of craft a sort of a well-written response in terms of a resolution, of which we can sort of opine on what we feel is lacking. And, and when these efforts are taken up again, hopefully this, critique, is incorporated into whatever legislation emerges. Because I think we can all agree that the land use process definitely leaves a lot to be desired in this city. Kavitha, is there anything that you would like to add or to chime in on it?
I was just going to say it was Jim and Wells are working on it, and I'm happy.
Did I say Jim Wells? I'm sorry.
You said Jim and myself, and I'm definitely gonna.
Oh God, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
All right, no big deal. But I know that there's a little bit more work to be done. We are hoping, and Wells, feel free to jump in. I know Jim already prepared the draft, but we're hoping that by next week's strategic planning meeting, we can have something, the resolution to review and to hopefully take it to full board the following week.
Yeah, I think so. Jim wrote a great first draft of it, and I need to add some to that. We're kind of a lot of people are chipping in on making sure that it's thorough, and we're just not quite there yet, but we will be soon.
Great. Thank you both for taking on this, very big task. Anne.
Yeah, so the more that I hear about this and learn about it and discuss it with people, the more terrible I think it is. And so I'm just kind of curious what the draft reso says.
Still a work in progress, right?
I mean, I guess the basic point is when I write a reso, I usually kind of start with the resolved and then I build the case for that, like the whereas build the case for that. And so I'm just kind of curious, like, what do we think? Is this going to be a vote in support? Is it in support with these, caveats? Is it a vote against? Like, just like at some very basic level, what are we saying?
Oh, yeah. Kavitha? Yeah.
I mean, Jim should jump in too, since
Yeah, I thought Jim was
But
I have my hand raised.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Well, you were already talking, so I thought you were going to finish. I'm sorry.
No,
Jim.
no, I didn't want to interrupt.
Yeah,
please. At the end of the day, and I apologize. I got the revision this morning at like 9:30, and I was tied up with a bunch of other stuff today. But one point I think we all need to acknowledge is this is a substantial change in ULURP as we know it, and ULURP is included within the the city charter, and given that all those changes are in this resolution or this intro, excuse me, I think it's very important that we make known, and George Janes, our consultant, agrees with this, that this be subject to a referendum by the voters, and apparently the only stop for that, the only thing stopping that is that the Board of Elections apparently says we require more time to run it, which would push this whole thing back to another election cycle in 2025. I don't buy that as an excuse. I think it's important that we either get the support of the public and pass a referendum, or that we leave it alone for the 4 years. I don't see any wiggle room there, and I think whatever the Board of Elections is saying, the ballots haven't been prepared. They haven't even run the primaries yet. So I think it's entirely within our, I think it's our duty as representatives of the community to stand up for voters and stand up for, citizens. Let us all weigh in on this as voters. I understand that there are issues with getting something so complex across to the public, and as I explained at one of our former 197, now Strategic Planning Committee, I think it's important that we need to realize or recognize that with every referendum, nobody actually sits down to read the fine print. I mean, I do, but most people don't. And when they read they're not going to read the fine print. They're going to rely on the New York Times, the New York Post, City and State, the Daily News, all of the other people who get paid to read through the fine print and to make a recommendation. And I very heartily suggest that whatever form our final resolution is drafted, that we have in there a demand, suggestion, whatever you want to call it, that the whatever changes are adopted need to pass a referendum, because they do
Okay.
alter the city charter.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Kavitha.
Yeah, thanks, Jim, and thanks for all your hard work on the resolution. I think it really is. And to go back to your question, because I know you've been kind of pouring through this stuff as I have, and I feel very similarly to how you do, but I do think at the end of the day, a comprehensive plan is with, with our input and suggested changes, is probably going to be a better thing than what we are dealing with now with really like piecemeal types of planning efforts. So I do think at the end, it's looking like it's going to be in support with several caveats, objections, recommendations, whatever we're calling those. It's overall going to be
Right.
in support with a lot of, if you do this and this and this.
Well,
so it's really
right.
how it's laid out, right?
Right.
Jim and Wells, please feel free to weigh in.
Whatever we get to, though, I think it needs to pass as a referendum. And there's just too much of a change to the city charter. And you can't change the charter without a referendum. So I think that's, it's a minimum threshold before we
Okay.
continue to discuss this.
Okay. Sandy, your hand is raised.
I just want to say that I actually disagree with Jim. I think this is a very complex issue. So what are you going to ask people? Should we have comprehensive planning or should we not have comprehensive planning? And if it's such a simple thing, I think we could all agree we need comprehensive planning. Look how long it's taken us just to go through this material. So if, maybe we want to divide that out as a separate vote. Are we in favor of moving ahead with comprehensive planning? And then also we probably need to vote, do we need a referendum for this to move ahead? I know if you listen to some of the meetings at the other boards, the concern is that it's incredibly slow. We won't get comprehensive planning for another 10 years, the way this is set out. So if we have to wait for a referendum and then we have someone study it again, I just don't think that this type of very nuanced, very detailed discussion has to have that. But I suggest we vote on it as part of our when we finally get down to voting on the resolution.
I think, as I've said, you can't change the city charter without a referendum. I mean, that's like, saying I'm going to change the state constitution without a referendum. It's the same process, just procedurally it has to go through a referendum. And I think the sooner that we make note of that, the faster the Board of Elections can prepare, and the faster the experts and the the commentators can get on board and start debating the thing through November.
Right. And
but
so
we should do that sooner rather than later.
Right. And I have to sort of emphasize, sort of to echo what Sandy said, this is a very complex, thing that has been presented to us, and sort of the party line has been from the drafters is like, this is really something that should have been presented in 2020 for them to work out for over a year. You know, there is an important budget cycle that's going on, and essentially they would need to sort of debate amongst themselves to what a consensus would be before this even comes out of committee and into the sort of the full council. So I mean, like, there's still quite some time before what it is out of the abstract of comprehensive planning, as opposed to what the actual final bill will be. And so with that, I'm going to go to Anne and then Letty, and then I think we're going to go ahead, unless we want to vote on something this evening, I think we're going to go ahead and move on, and then the strategic planning committee can deal with this more. And next week, right? Next Thursday?
I mean, just one last point before we close off and before you go to Letty. The charter revision process was complex, and the, explaining all of it, and I guess there were 3 or 4 questions on the ballot last cycle about what they, I guess this was during the controller's special election, or not the controller, the public advocate special election. It happens to be complex, and people are educated by different media, and it's up to them to ultimately take the decision. It's not up to the community boards. It's not up to City Hall. It's up to the chart. It is required of the charter.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jim. All right. So Anne, Letty, and then Larry, and then we're gonna move on.
So, I mean, what you guys are talking about is it's a factual question, whether it's whether it's a change to the city charter that is, needs to be a referendum. Like, that's, we consider discuss it all day, but we're not lawyers. And I mean, I would think there's somebody
Well, Larry's a lawyer.
but this is not necessarily his area of expertise. But I mean, there must be somebody, in like the Office of Legal Counsel or whatever it's called, that can give like an actual legal opinion on this. I agree with Jim too, though, that I think it's ridiculous to say that it's too early to get this on the ballot for November. Or I mean, it's too late to get it on the ballot for November. I got to say, I'm not entirely comfortable with the idea of having a reso on this, voting on a reso on this. First of all, like, not having seen it, I'm certainly not comfortable voting on it. So if that's what you were talking about, and further, because the legislation is still in committee, in some ways, like, there's no real legislation for us to comment on. Like, what there is draft legislation.
Oh, there's a bill.
Well, I know there's a bill, but
Yeah.
because
Or
it's still in
intro, as
committee,
they call them in the city
in the
hall.
intro, right?
Right.
But because it's still in committee, like, that's, things change there. Like, we don't know that this is final. So I think that's just something we have to acknowledge in the reso. I don't think that should stop us from writing the reso. I just think it's something we need to acknowledge and,
Agreed.
I mean, in fact, the whole point of doing the reso is to change the legislation, to make it have the things in it that we feel are
Right.
important.
And again, all the people who have signed on as sponsors, they're like, we agree in this in theory, but there's a lot of points that we need to hash out and change. So,
And can I say, I had really been hoping, we talked about this last month, that, there would be a representative. Pretty much, I think all of our council members have signed on as co-sponsors. And we've discussed this now 2 months in a row, and we have not had anybody, present to talk about it. And I'm disappointed in that. We have such great electeds. And did Kavitha, did somebody come to the strategic planning meeting from any council member's office?
No, we had George James at the meeting. I think we had
yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to cut you off, Kavitha. I mean, Wilfredo came last month. I mean, he was from Kalos's office. Cody reached out to the other electeds. And I mean, they gave us, an in-depth sort of, presentation of what it was. It was still being worked out, and they're going through this stuff. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, Kavitha is more than welcome to invite them for her committee meeting, but because this is just sort of just a general update, I didn't want to spend too much time on it this week.
Fair enough.
Sorry to interrupt, Kavitha.
No problem. I just want to say that, because they had the hearing, and if there's a way to go back and get the testimony from the hearing, everybody spoke to it at that, all the elected spoke to that. So I guess I might be kind of, remiss in realizing like not everybody sat there like I did listening to the 8 hours of that thing, but there was quite a lot of discussion around it.
And Letty,
I'm going to be very brief. I just have a very simple question, which is specifically what section of the charter is this changing?
I would have to go back and reference it. I have some stuff in my notes, but that was a while ago when I first wrote the resolution.
That would be of interest because that would determine. I think that the reso would outline our position and our strategy. Based on that, we would be able to determine what kind of tactics we were after. That's why I'm asking the question. So
Right.
I guess we have. If you would be so kind when you review your notes or at the next meeting. Or even at the strategic planning committee meeting.
Yeah, that's right. I intend to raise it more.
Okay, but that would be most helpful if that information were
Yeah,
included. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
great. All right, thank you all for the update. And it sounds like there's a lot to be discussed next Thursday. Looking forward to tuning in.
There are some written questions in the question and answer thing.
All right.
And a comment, it looks like. A
Okay,
question and a
comment.
comment.
They both sort of look like comments.
Adam,
Yeah, Larry.
I was on the list of people.
Oh, I'm sorry, Larry. I saw your hand go down in the backup. I apologize. Please.
Okay, I'll take the hand down. I'd like to take a step back from the details of the discussion and point out that this will fundamentally change the role of the community board because it fundamentally changes ULURP or simply eliminates it. But
which is one of the changes to the city charter.
Right. I attended the meetings concerning the most major recent changes to the city charter when dealt with the elimination of the Board of Estimate and replacing its powers and the powers of the borough presidents, increasing the power of the city council. And at that time, nothing was done to modify or alter the uniform land use review process. And that was a very conscious decision, and that the roles of the community board were kept intact while everything else around us changed. And so unless there's some kind of a charter modification commission that goes into this in detail, I think this city council arrangement is the wrong way to go. That's my comment.
Thank you very much, Larry. So it sounds like unlike the legislation, it sounds like there will be like a fully baked reso on our end next Thursday. So we're looking forward to attending that meeting and looking forward to seeing what you guys produce, and then eventually voting on it full board and so on and so forth. So thank you all for this discussion. All right, so we're going to move the agenda. And so we're going to move to item number 3. So this is a continued discussion of the long-term vision of the waterfront here in CD6, that's north of Stuyvesant Cove. And I also want to add an addendum that's sort of, south of Stuyvesant Cove as well, the Captain Patrick Brown Walk. So anyway, this is sort of supposed to be just a broad sort of general thing. What I'd like to do is one, just sort of sketch out some strategies of what we can do between this committee or this meeting and then sort of future meetings. Cody, if you could, I hate to put you on the spot in this last meeting, but if you could call up the Airtable for budget requests, or maybe I can do that. I'm not sure.
1 second, I got it.
Okay, thank you. So again, if everyone's not aware, this is Cody's last land use meeting in his current position, and he will be joining Airtable, which hosts quite nicely our budget requests. And so we got a question before the meeting about the pedestrian bridge, the flyover at the Con Ed site. So we've placed this on our budget request in the past. And so Cody, if you could pull that up. So I'm sure everyone has seen this in some way, shape, or form, either in their own free time or in different committees. And so we will be looking at this document as a whole through our committee, probably in May and June. But I just kind of wanted to just use as a reference point so you can begin to look at it now if you haven't. And also make a plug for Cody's future employer. So this, if you click on the rows, it tells you what the item is. You know, build a pedestrian bridge from the pinch point, and the write-up that we gave to the city. And then also what's really great is that there are actually comments that the city agencies have provided back. And this is extremely helpful because these are things that we've probably know by memory, for better or for worse at this point. But the fact that the city agencies have commented on these, then let's just say the feedback is better in places and worse in others. But for the pedestrian bridge is actually sort of helpful. So there's a note. So the agency response provided a fully funded bike path that will receive further study. And then on October 28, 2020, the district manager reached out and confirmed with the EDC that this is not part of the ESCR. The flyover bridge, much to our chagrin and much to the resolutions that we've passed, will be built separate and built after the project. And so the city's trying to figure out, they're basically designing the flyover bridge right now, but they have confirmed the funding, which in the fall of 2020, that would have been maybe, but with the city funding a little bit unsure footing, that's, you know, decent news. That's pretty good news. So again, to answer that question, that's sort of where the flyover stands. The good news is that it's funded. It's a project on the horizon. The bad news is that it is quite a distance away, and it will not be built in conjunction and will lead to further delays with the waterfront. And that leaves a lot to be desired. And so with that, one of the things I think I'd like to do is, and I'll talk to the office about this, is that as it's getting warmer outside, you know, I encourage us all sort of to go to the waterfront, you know, in our respective areas, and to take photos and sort of jot down ideas and the sorts of stuff. And we can sort of put these in one sort of central repository. This has actually been sort of helpful in terms of the sinkhole saga, in that we were able to prove that there were concrete barriers that were there before the construction, and then that the state DOT didn't put back, and we're still waiting for them to put them back. So anyway, what we can do is that we can sort of create a sort of repository that's a resource for sort of our ongoing planning efforts, but also sort of our advocacy in terms of when things actually begin to move or don't move. So if you'd like, what we can do is we can sort of cut up different areas of interest that you would be interested in. Personally, I would be very interested in the pinch point, as always, and sort of the Captain Brown walk. I was sending Kevin some emails today, and, you know, there's a lot of issues with this segment, you know, in terms of upkeep and maintenance as a whole. There's overflowing garbage cans, there's graffiti, there's paint, there's all sorts of stuff. And this is sort of the odd child out, because this is a state property. This is a state DOT property wedged between the city, EDC, Solar One, et cetera. So while there's time to sort of plan and design for the flyover bridge, they really should be considering about this segment. And I'm hoping that we can do stuff not only just in this committee, but as a board to sort of advocate for those things. So anyway, I'll stop yakking. Kevin.
Thanks, Adam. Hey, look, I'm just jumping in. First of all, not having a planned date for the completion of the flyover bridge is unacceptable.
Right.
Anything we can do to move that. What hand does Con Ed have in that piece of property?
Outside of not wanting to move or do anything with the brick structure that creates the narrow walkway, basically everything.
So they're pushing back on it, Con Ed?
Yeah, my understanding is that they've sort of have always been an obstinate force in this, and that they need all of the right of way of which they have currently.
Okay. Well, I'll be an obstinate force against them. Thank you, Adam.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the solutions that we've talked about in the past, truthfully, I was there today. I think just taking a lane of the FDR, just a concrete barrier, and just moving forward that way would probably be more economical and, a lot quicker than an actual build structure. But that's me. Larry and then Ann.
Just a reminder, Con Ed came to the committee and gave a presentation about what it uses that brick building for.
Mm-hmm.
And why it cannot remove it. It's used to raise and lower a screen that keeps fish and other debris out of the cooling facility within the power plant, where it exchanges river water at that location. And so really is nothing that they physically can do to modify that structure. That said,
right.
The reason why, starting with the Blue Way plan, we were looking at building an elevated bypass was acknowledging that the physical impediment there was something that had to be worked around. And I'm not knowledgeable about any other opposition that Con Ed has, except that obviously footings shouldn't compromise its underground facilities there. It's a water tunnel and the like. But I'm sure they would be pleased to see this happen as long as their own plant isn't damaged. Now, in regard to the Patrick J. Brown Walk, I wanted to bring to your attention that there are trees, or there have been trees in the past that got ruined by Superstorm Sandy, and that whatever improvements need to be made there need to take into account replacing them and irrigating them, along with ensuring that there's uncorroded wires that go to light all of the street lamps that keep the walkway illuminated.
Right. Well, and to that point, Larry, I'm not sure if you've been over there lately, but there's even less trees than there were a few years ago. And I don't know if that's ESCR work or what have you. But then also too, like the tiles themselves along the actual, the embankment there are cracked and broken, in addition to the graffiti and the rust. So it's
Are you talking about the fencing along the highway?
Yeah, the fencing along the highway. So there's actually decorative tiles and stuff that have also they've been.
Oh yeah, they were cracked a long time ago, and the trash cans that existed there were stolen many years ago.
I can confirm the trash cans are still there. They're just overflowing with trash. So.
Hey Adam, I just want to clarify. I said when I asked if it was Con Ed property. I'm talking about air rights as well. Do they have?
Oh, no, I don't.
Sorry, go ahead.
Pretty much like what Larry said, I don't think there's really any problem with the existing. They just don't want to see the existing footprint that they have.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you again.
Okay. And then Ann, and then Sandy.
Yeah, this is just a quickie, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, but the real pinch point for the waterfront in our district is the absence of anything between 41st and 53rd and the UN.
Okay.
So just
So
going to say that every time this comes up.
So do you want to volunteer for that portion?
I mean, the last conversation I had a conversation with Liz Kruger about it maybe a year ago.
Okay.
It was before COVID, so
okay.
But probably not much before that. And she basically said, you know, we could still do it. Like we could still do the plan. It's just a matter of money.
Okay.
And which, I mean, I think is probably right. And obviously it's a ton of money. But, you know, I think if we keep putting that as a, you know, high priority in our budget requests, especially, Biden says the next big thing he wants to invest in is, green, infrastructure, both green and not. So
Sure.
wouldn't it be great to have a project ready to go when some of that money starts coming around? So
Absolutely.
anyway.
And I think you spoke to the right person, the head of the Senate Finance Committee here in the state. Very powerful role in the state budget. And I believe there's a certain congressperson on the east side as well that plays a very powerful role in the House Representatives budget as well. So
we can just hope.
Oh, sorry. No, please.
I just said we can just hope.
Fingers crossed. Sandy.
Just that, it's something that's come up a lot is trying to remove the NYU parking that is at 34th Street, whatever we can do to push that. I think as a committee, we've already addressed it, but, constantly bringing it up. The other thing is the police parking under the FDR between 35th and 37th. Again, I guess all these things are just like constantly letting people know that and it's so much less money to just get rid of that parking than to build over the pinch point. If we have to start small, maybe that's where we start.
Right. And so I guess it is something we should ponder for if it's like a series of smaller individualized resolutions or if it's sort of like a larger one. But I think sort of when we're crafting our budget sort of conversation, we're looking at our budget needs or budget requests rather, in May and June, we can sort of retailer to sort of meet these sort of specific needs and to sort of refresh, if you will.
Because it's obviously a lot of small issues as well as these huge things. And
absolutely.
The small ones actually will improve the quality of life here on the east side.
Absolutely. And I think we've seen that play out, last year, a lot of small improvements, when they're going a long way.
Absolutely.
Okay. Looks like there's a couple of questions. There's a couple questions here. When they took over, why can't they narrow the bypass? Cody, can you unmute Lauren? I don't quite understand her question.
Hi.
Hi there.
Thank you. What I mean is the whole area has tons more land that went to Con Ed after 9/11 to have, I guess, security for the Con Ed. They took over tons of land to the west of the river. And why can't they therefore have to give up a little bit of their land on the east side in exchange for all the land they took over? They've just taken over broad swaths, is that the word? Swaths? I don't know. Swaths of land after 9/11. That was one comment. And why can't we have a bypass going east over the river instead of worrying about this narrow place, where the bikes can't go? And why does it have to be so elevated, which will make it harder for bikers, harder for walkers who can't have great ways of climbing a thing to go? If they create something, why does it have to be up high? Why can't it just be east? Those are my two comments. Does that make sense?
That makes absolute sense. I can't speak to we can ask the district office about sort of Con Ed's sort of seizure or whatever the land of the West.
Excuse me, one more thing is we don't even have a 14th Street entrance to the FDR Drive because of the Con Ed thing. Right. I mean, they took over tons of land, to a little bit to the west of the drive, and they sealed it off. They closed off the 14th Street entrance to the FDR. When they took over the soccer fields back, and they just had this big land grab for security after 9/11, which I thought was temporary, but it's been a few years since 9/11.
Okay, yeah, if we can look into the office and in terms of the elevated structure, yeah, I'm with you. Seems, I don't know, it seems to be over engineered, if you will.
Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you, Larry. And then we're going to go ahead and move on. Larry.
I can address some of those.
All right, yeah, go for it.
Okay, well, regarding 14th and 15th Street, my recollection is that in regard to 9/11, this was a terrorism concern, and for security reasons, these big blue fences were erected at Avenue C at both 14th Street and 15th Street, and the city closed off the southbound exit 6 and the southbound entrance from 14th Street. The exit was onto 15th Street over to Avenue C, and there hasn't been any police department input as to whether it's safe to restore those roadways, but it's something we may want to keep an eye on in the future for continuing discussions. That was something that was frequently on our agenda in years way past. Now, with respect to the suggestion that the flyover bridge or a bypass of the pinch point be riverward of the screen building, there is a working dock that Con Ed uses for delivery of oil for when it uses that fuel to operate the power plant. Con Ed seems to have switched over to natural gas, but they have had in the past a coal-fired facility as well, and I'm sure they want to maintain that potential flexibility if there's an interruption in their gas supply.
That works. All right, thank you, Larry. And so with that, what I'll do is, again, I'll coordinate with the office to see sort of what the best way is to move forward, like in terms of how we can share documents with one another, and sort of how we should move forward on these, either as bite-sized chunks or as a larger sort of endeavor. So more to come. Okay, with that, thank you all. I'm going to jump in the chair's report real quick. So just a couple of updates. So I'm not sure if you've heard, but Gene Santoro had a pretty nasty bike accident a couple weeks ago. Not great, but however, he's doing very well. He sends his best. He almost tuned in, but I said, that's not a good idea. Let's just, let's take a break for a bit. So, so if you want to send him a kind word in one way, shape, or form, I think he'd like that. But anyway, he's doing very well, and he'll join you all via Zoom in the not too distant future. So probably during the Transpo meeting on April 5th. There are, for future sort of meetings, we sort of have two ULURPs that we're looking at, and Cody can jump in at any point to sort of correct me. So I believe before in the past, we talked about how there is a shelter that is going to, there's a shelter essentially that has to, I'm forgetting the crossroads off the top of my head, but
it's 45th. You're talking about the St. Agnes? So yeah.
Yes. So
45th, 2nd, and 3rd.
So they will be certified. I think they're aiming for a certification within the next month or so. And so the representatives of that shelter would like to come to the land use committee to present basically their proposal and sort of allow for public feedback, and that will serve as the public hearing. And so we got this news today. I think what sort of we're trying to hash out right now is how this will be done. Will this be done next month, just in our meeting, and that's it? And then they'll discuss more in Corinne's committee, or if it's a joint committee, where we housing and homeless meets where we discuss together. And so the office is sort of sorting that out right now. But for our end, The ULURP itself is going to be extremely straightforward. It's just a property transfer. So everything, my understanding is it's as of right development. You know, these things are, can be contentious from time to time, but from a strict land use standpoint, the ULURP itself is just a matter of process, if you will. Cody, is there anything that you'd like to comment or add to or subtract?
No, you hit on it. I
Okay.
mean, this is a sale of city land, which is why it's subject to ULURP. The city owns this property that Project Renewal, the shelter operator that's been in that site for decades, has maintained, and now they are selling it to Project Renewal, who will demolish the building and replace the shelter back with a new shelter of the same amount of beds, but also build above the shelter both some affordable and supportive housing beds.
Thank you. And the other ULURP that we're looking at, the former MTA headquarters, 343 Madison, that will certify later as well, and that will probably deal with that as a committee after CB5, and so that maybe May, but more likely probably June. Is that correct, Cody? Or...
Yes, they don't know when that's going to certify, but kind of they've said that they're hoping for May, because just in terms of like if every element of ULURP took its full clock, if something certifies in June, it probably won't get signed by this administration.
Right.
And so they're pushing for May so that like at the end of December, the current administration can sign off after it's gone through CPC and the council for any of these projects.
Okay. And Sandy's been working closely with CB5. So if there's any sort of update or whatnot, feel free to chime in. No. Okay.
No,
yeah,
none
that's
that I
what it
know
is.
of.
There's no update.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's it. There's just no news. It's the good news is we don't have to deal with it this month. It's later down the road. Okay. And the last portion I want to say is, I want to extend a deep and warm, thank you, shout out to Cody. He's been an incredible force, for this committee and for this, this board as a whole. He is a fount of knowledge and he will be missed. And we hope that he is able to enjoy the CB6 waterfront and land use components in their future state, devoid of a meeting, but rather like the fruits of what is to come. So thank you for all your work, Cody. Again, the words really just don't properly articulate how much of a net good that you've been, for all of us here. So thank you. And I believe he's going to be performing a song and dance underneath Old Business. Not entirely sure about that. Okay, so we're going to move on to new business. And so the new business portion is sort of what was heard during Solar One. And I think the question is sort of, is there anything that we sort of want to do with this? Do we want to potentially work on a resolution to sort of address the comments and the concerns that were brought forth today? Or is this something that we sort of want to bring up in earnest at our next committee meeting? Yeah, I don't know either. So Sandy?
I think we should probably write some, either a letter or a resolution. I mean, maybe at this point it's a letter, but just to voice our support for Solar One, and that we're happy to assist them in any way in their discussions.
Yeah,
they're a great member of our community, and we really want them to be able to function and do it safely. And the fact that it's one of the few garden spaces that still has volunteers that can go and participate, it's important to keep that.
Sure. Larry?
I agree. The situation that Dina was describing as having been thrust upon them is really untenable. Their building apparently has been cut off from the utilities that are essential for their staff to function there and to perform their work as they're basically out in the field, and those issues weren't even addressed or even acknowledged, and that's concerning. I think we have to take a stand in one manner, shape, or form. And probably the first thing to do would be, as Sandy suggested, write a letter, get it out immediately, rather than having to wait for the full board to approve a resolution. Maybe we could tentatively prepare a resolution or have in mind for next month that, or I'm just wondering, what do you think, Sandy, about having a resolution at the ready for the full board to vote on?
I mean, I think the full board definitely would support this. So,
Right.
But I know Kyle, I see Kyle's on the call. Kyle, do you feel comfortable writing a letter at this point with if we vote on it as a committee, as a letter of support?
Yeah, absolutely. We can do a letter. That's probably the fastest way to get something done.
No, that's fantastic, Kyle. But what I'm suggesting is something that you might have in your back pocket that it doesn't have to necessarily be voted on at full board. It could be pulled in the interim, but something that would appear on the calendar, a resolution that we vote on as a committee that would set forth the sentiment of the board that Solar One needs to be fairly treated, and its workers need to be able to operate in humane conditions, as their remit is to take care of the part of the park that's being kept open to the public while the construction's performed in the north part.
We could certainly write a reso and have it ready if that's.
I will defer to the committee on that. I'm fine with either.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Ann.
You know, full board is not for like 3 weeks.
Right.
And, you know, it's like a really important 3 weeks in a gardener's life. So, you know, like I'd prefer to do a letter and send kind of ASAP.
Yeah, I think I would echo those sentiments, because there's ongoing conversations they're having with the agencies as well too. So I think that might help in whatever way it can, you know, in terms with those discussions. So I guess Kyle in the office, you'll feel comfortable writing a letter, and
and we'll connect with you as well, Adam, because
sure.
you can be a co-signer on it as the chair of the.
Okay. Fine. Okay. All right. So we'll do that. Okay. So that's good. All right. Okay, Larry, you had your hand raised, or?
Yeah. I'm not sure whether I was understood, because I can move a resolution right now in support of those issues that the letter are going to contain, and if the letter is not satisfactorily responded to, or doesn't bring about any action, this resolution could be voted on.
I don't know. I'm going back and forth, because I feel like the letter will sort of do so in a timely.
Yeah, I think Larry, what you're trying to say is like we can do both. You want to like send a letter out and then have the resolution as a backup for whatever reason. Yes. I mean, I'll leave that up to the committee. I was just translating.
You're right.
Yes, but before we have a vote, I think we would obviously need it seconded in the discussion.
Okay, all right, Jim.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that under new business, I looked at the budget, mayor's provisional budget, and I saw that the sanitation garage is still a go item on there. So we should probably address it going forward at some point. Similarly, I think, it's been 20 years since 9/11, and I'm thinking that perhaps.
Is this
What?
related to Solar One?
Oh, no, I thought you were talking new business.
Oh, sorry,
Aren't you
sorry.
under
No,
new
no,
business at this point?
Yeah, we're still underneath new business. This is a new business item.
It is a new business, right?
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I've made a motion for a resolution in support of the subject matter of the letter to provide sanitary facilities and the like for Solar One going forward as they maintain the park through the course of this ESCR project.
On order, I don't think we need, unless we're doing a resolution, I don't think we need to take a vote.
Well, I'm making a motion
It's
for
just a
resolution.
motion. It's just a letter.
No, I'm
Larry's making
I'm making a motion for a resolution.
All right.
In the event that
In addition to the letter.
Right. In case the letter isn't responded to in the 3 weeks.
Right. So is there a second?
I'll second.
Ann seconds it. Okay. All right, Cody. Looks like we get to do an old-fashioned roll call.
All right.
Can we still address the issue that I raised?
Yeah, we got to vote on this first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Jim, on Larry's motion, seconded by Ann.
Okay.
In
Yes.
favor?
Yes.
Adam?
Aye.
Molly?
In favor.
Kavitha?
In favor.
Sandy?
In favor.
Wells?
In favor.
Jane is out. Larry?
In favor.
Ann?
In favor.
Lou?
No.
Okay. Sandro? Sandro? Letty?
In favor.
And Kathy has not joined either. So with that, it's 9 in favor, 1 opposed, 0 abstentions, 0 not entitled.
Okay, great. All right, Larry. So you'll have the reso.
I will write. I will write.
Okay, good. All right, good. All right,
Larry, if you want any help with editing, I'm always happy to help.
And I can help
thank you,
too. Absolutely happy to help.
Oh,
excellent.
You're
Adam?
so wonderful.
Mm-hmm. All right,
Adam,
thank you
a
all.
point of clarification to
Yes.
a question that I think was
sorry.
asked in
So
the Q&A.
yeah, go ahead, and then we'll go to Jim. Because I think
Yes,
this
just
will be quick.
quickly
Okay.
on the New Providence shelter, which I think Scott is referring to. That shelter currently exists. So it is not a matter of getting a new shelter. That currently existing shelter, the city is selling the land that it currently leases to the shelter operator. The shelter operator is going to close the shelter, knock the building down, rebuild the shelter, but on top of the shelter, build affordable and supportive housing units. And because the city is selling the land to the developer, it is subject to the land use review process. And on the Vanderbilt Y shelter that was also referenced, that shelter is a temporary density reduction site in place during the pandemic. Just wanted to clarify those points.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Cody. All right, Jim, the floor is yours.
No, I'm sorry. I started to say that the DSNY sanitation garage is still a live issue on the mayor's provisional budget. And I think we need to address it. And the second matter is, as I said, it's been 20 years since 9/11. And I'm wondering if perhaps the decision to close 14th Street between the FDR Drive and Avenue C is still relevant in today's society or today's condition. It just makes sense. I think that it should be, at the very least, it should be reviewed periodically. And I would think that 20 years is sufficient time to review it. And then perhaps every 5 years thereafter.
Yeah, it's definitely something we can review.
I'm just wondering if we can add that to as an agenda item at some point.
Sure. Yeah. We
Going
can have
forward.
the office. Sure. We can have the office look into both
ISIS
those
is
matters.
dead. You know, everybody's dead.
So we can have
Knock wood.
the budget. Yeah, we can have the budget look into both of those matters and sort of get clarity, and then we can sort of discuss them in future meetings. Do you know if the ad hoc budget committee has talked about the sanitation garage at all?
I'm sorry?
Do you know if the ad hoc budget committee or if they've addressed the sanitation garage at all underneath the current proposed budget?
On the budget committee, not that I recognize, not that I recollect. I'll be raising it next meeting.
Okay, great.
All right.
All right, thank you. Okay. Is there any new other new or old business? Okay. Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Excellent. Okay. Do we have to do another roll call or are we good to go, Cody?
There's no second roll call, so you're adjourn the meeting as you wish.
Excellent. All right. So the meeting is adjourned at 8:08 p.m. Again, thank you all and a big hearty thank you to Cody Osterman for all of his efforts.